When Karen from the HOA banged on my door, waving papers and shrieking that our rules don't allow two properties in one name, she made one fatal mistake. She forgot this wasn't her HOA community. This was my Woodland retreat, private, land miles away from her authority. She thought she could bully me out, but she had no idea who she was messing with. I bought my Woodland property about 6 years ago, long before I ever got tangled up with the HOA. It wasn't just some cabin I had spent years restoring it. Acres of oak, pine, and maple surrounded the house, and the silence was golden. It was the kind of place you go when the rest of the world becomes too loud. Now, here's the catch. I also owned a suburban home, which happened to fall under an HOA. That property was never supposed to be my permanent home. It was an investment in a convenient spot near my job. But since it was in a neighborhood governed by one of those infamous power-drunk HOAs, I quickly learned how controlling they could be. Fines for grass length, letters about mailbox color, and of course, Karen wasn't just a resident. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA. She wasn't the president. But she practically ran the board with her constant complaints and harassment campaigns. She thrived on finding new ways to control her neighbors, and I was just the next target. It all started one Saturday morning when I returned from my Woodland home, tired but content, after a few days of chopping wood and fishing. Karen was already in my driveway, arms crossed, her face pinched like she'd sucked on a lemon. "You can't live here anymore," she announced, shoving a piece of paper in my face. "The HOA bylaws clearly state that members are allowed only one primary property. You own two. That violates Section 4, subsection B." Stared at her, dumbfounded. "Karen, that doesn't even make sense. The HOA governs this neighborhood. They don't get to control what I own outside of it." She smirked. "Actually, it does. It's called community uniformity. You can't split your residency between two homes. It destabilizes our neighborhood's sense of belonging." I had to bite back a laugh. She sounded like she had just swallowed a corporate brochure. "Karen, you don't get to tell me where I can or can't live. My Woodland property isn't under this HOA's jurisdiction." She jabbed the paper again. "I'm reporting you to the board. It can ban you." And that's when it clicked. Karen thought she had authority far beyond what the HOA actually had. Over the next few weeks, Karen made my life hell. First came the letter's long, rambling complaints accusing me of splitting loyalty between homes. Then she tried fines. Actual fines for abandonment of community spirit. I refused to pay, of course. She doubled them. Then came the harassment. At my Woodland home, somehow she found where it was and drove out there with a clipboard. She stood at the end of my gravel driveway, taking photos like some kind of deranged paparazzi. When I confronted her, she had the audacity to say, "This property is not sanctioned by the HOA. You can't live here and remain in our neighborhood." Told her flatly, "Karen, this land is mine. You don't get to sanction anything out here." But she didn't stop. A week later, I discovered she had filed a complaint with the county zoning office, claiming my Woodland home was an illegal second residence. She even alleged I was running it as an unlicensed business. Luckily, the county official who showed up was a reasonable man. He looked over my deed, checked the records, and laughed. "Sir, you're fine. She's wasting our time." That should have been the end of it. But Karen wasn't the kind to accept defeat. It all came to a head at the next HOA meeting. I decided to show up because I was sick of being targeted. The board sat in their usual semicircle, with Karen perched in the front row, ready to pounce. She stood up and launched into a tirade. "Residents, we cannot allow dual property ownership under our rules. It creates divided commitment. It invites outsiders. Oh, this man is a threat to our community." Gasps filled the room. Some neighbors whispered in confusion. Others just rolled their eyes. They knew Karen's antics all too well. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the podium, holding my property deed in one hand and my HOA contract in the other. "I want to make something crystal clear," said my voice carrying. "The HOA has zero authority over my Woodland home. This," I held up the deed, "is private land outside your jurisdiction. Nowhere in this contract I waived the HOA paperwork does it state that I can't own more than one property. Karen jumped to her feet, screeching, it's implied. It's about loyalty. He's destabilizing us. I turned to the board. So what is it? Do you have the legal authority to tell me what land I can or can't own? Silence. The board members shifted uncomfortably. They knew the truth. Finally, the HOA president cleared his throat. Mr. Daniels is correct. Our jurisdiction does not extend beyond this neighborhood. There is no violation here. Karen's face turned crimson. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Karen, you've trespassed on my property, harassed me, and filed false complaints with the county. If this continues, I'll have no choice but to involve the police and my attorney. The room erupted in murmurs. Some even clapped. For once, Karen had been put in her place. Of course, Karen didn't take it well. She tried subtle retaliation, reporting my car as abandoned when I left it in my driveway, complaining that my trash cans were out 5 minutes too long, even alleging that I had wild animals at my Woodland property that endangered the neighborhood. The last one made me laugh. Of course, there were wild animals. It was the woods. But when she started parking her car near my Woodland driveway at night, flashing her headlights, I realized this had gone too far. She was obsessed, and obsession can be dangerous, so I did what she never expected. I filed a restraining order when the sheriff served her the papers. I was told she nearly fainted. It barred her from stepping foot on my Woodland property ever again. Months passed. Slowly, Karen's crusade lost steam. The board stopped listening to her. Neighbors began ignoring her endless rants. She became more isolated, her power slipping away. Then came the ultimate irony. The HOA board quietly informed me that Karen herself was in violation of several bylaws. She had built an illegal extension on her backyard without approval. She had spent all her energy targeting me. She hadn't noticed the rules closing in on her. The board fined her heavily. When she refused to pay, they took her to court. In the end, she nearly lost her home, the very fate she had once tried to force on me. I still live in my Woodland retreat, free and at peace. The HOA eventually quieted down once Karen's grip on them broke. She still lives in the neighborhood, but she avoids me at all costs now. Sometimes, when I sit on my cabin porch and watch the sun filter through the trees, I think about how absurd it was that someone actually believed they had the power to tell me where I could and couldn't live. Karen forgot one crucial truth. You can't control what doesn't belong to you, and in the end, she destroyed herself trying. This story is just the beginning. There is so much more ahead. Subscribe to the channel to join me on this journey.